Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Chris Lewis runs the UK's largest, most popular cancer blog. He's an advocate for the patient experience, and his advocacy comes from experience. He was diagnosed with incurable cancer in 2007 with little chance of survival. But he is beating the odds, and in doing so has changed the cancer conversation and the lives of many. I am delighted to welcome Chris Lewis to Bump in the Road. Chris, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell people a little bit about your background.
Yeah, certainly, Pat. First of all, thanks very much for inviting me. And for those that don't know, I had my own bump in the road. That was at 2007. Prior to that, I was a business guy, Pat. I was in the rag trade. I was in selling ladies' clothes. And I was very happy doing that, travelling around the world and making a bit of money. It was great fun and I really enjoyed myself. And I got to the age of 50 and I couldn't believe that time had gone very quickly. And that was, for me, was a time for a life review. You know, you get to certain milestones in your life. And 50 for me was that one. I still felt like a young kid of 21, but I thought I'm not. I was feeling a bit creaky and groany, so I thought I'd better sit down and review how things are going. Business was great. My wife was just retiring, actually, because she's a bit older than me. And we were talking about what we might do in the future. And of course, we have a saying over here that what man proposes, God disposes. And within 6 months of our conversation at home, I was diagnosed with mantle cell lymphoma, stage 4, which for those that don't know is an incurable blood cancer. So not only did that put a stop to our plans, at that time I was given 6 months to live. So that there was the bump in the road. So my life changed quite dramatically from being a very successful business guy to a patient needing to stay alive.
Wow. Now, you had to go through a bone marrow transplant as part of your treatment, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
That's a pretty tough procedure.
Yeah, I did it twice, actually, because the first one failed after 2 or 3 years. So I needed some more cells from my donor. So yeah, I've done it. I'm quite good at it now.
Man, you are braver than me. That is one procedure that just scares the stuffings out of me.
I can't say it's brave, Pat, to be honest with you, because you're just staying alive. You know, people use that term bravery. And I think that sort of comes in where you have a bit of a choice. In this instance, I was told to either have it or you're going to die. So there wasn't really much bravery involved. It was a question of, okay, let's get on with it.
I think one of the most remarkable things that came out of your cancer experience is the fact that you started your charity.
Yeah, I did. That was a few years down the road, Pat. I was how long down the road now? So I started my charity just over 4 years ago. So I was 10 years away from my cancer diagnosis and from some of the initial treatment anyway. But because my case is so complex and the cancer is incurable, I'm constantly going through problems with side effects, as you know very well, and I'm sure a lot of the audience know that when you're treated for cancer, you know, especially a serious one, they bombard it with lots of chemicals and nasty stuff. And it's sort of later on in life that you find those problems coming down the road at you. So, yeah, I started the charity 4 years ago. I felt that I had an opportunity to help people, Pat. I'm helping them through my website, but practical help in the UK, and that was something that I didn't think I would get the opportunity. It was something that just fell on me, really, and it was something I was delighted to pick up and run with.
Now, you offer help obviously through your, excuse me, blog and website, but also through SimPal.
Yeah.
Your SimPal program is simply amazing. Tell people about it.
Yeah, thank you. There's a play on the words there, SimPal, actually, because I didn't take me long to think of the name, because actually the best things in life are really simple. And the problem, I'm a business guy, so I have a business background, and I just want to look at a problem and find the easiest way to solve it. I don't see much of that going on in the world. People tend to make things very complex when actually they're a lot easier than they are. And for me, the problem I saw was an issue of what I call cancer poverty. And that was that many people were getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer, and then were unable to work, unable to continue their job. They either got sacked because they were becoming unreliable due to the treatment, or they just weren't physically able to do their work. And in a lot of households, there's one breadwinner, and even if there are two, for very serious cancer, two people, it affects the whole family. So we don't just support people that have cancer. We understand that it affects the whole family and friends scenario. So we help people with that. And the simple thing is that we know, of course, now, particularly after COVID, that we're living in a very digital age, and a lot of us would never have got through COVID without the technology, that we're using today. For example, here, video calls and all that sort of stuff, which is okay for the average guy, because you need to spend a bit of money on good Wi-Fi in the house, and you need a lot of 4G, 5G, or whatever it is that's involved. If you want to do Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, you want to connect with your loved ones. Well, unfortunately, even pre-COVID, that was a problem for a lot of people to afford something that's basically necessary. A mobile phone these days is not a luxury. It's actually a necessity. And, I knew personally that this was a problem for people affected by cancer. So we just decided, my partner and I, in the charity, Blair, who runs a mobile phone business, she approached me and she said, is there anything that she could do to help? And I said, yes, let's try this thing. I know that people need mobile phone and they need some free calls and data. So we came up with a scheme that not everyone needs a phone, of course. Some people have a phone, but they couldn't afford the data, etc. So we provide either the phone and data, or just the data and calls, etc., to support a family for 6 months. And we viewed that it's not a permanent solution by any stretch of the imagination, but we wanted to just let there be one thing less for that family to worry about, and that was to take away their mobile phone bill for 6 months, just so that they could concentrate on the things that they would need to focus on. So it's a simple scheme. People apply through the internet. Unfortunately, it's only available in the UK, and I can't believe any other countries haven't done it, but they haven't done it. And it's something that really COVID shone a light on now what we would call the digital divide. COVID's shown us a lot of division between people, and now there's a real digital divide between the haves and the have-nots, including kids for their education. Families need tablets and phones and stuff. So that problem has only been exacerbated by COVID. So now we're approached by a lot of people helping, let's say, older people with other chronic illnesses that can't come out from their house. So, the whole idea is expanded throughout the country.
One of the things you've always talked about with regard to cancer is the isolation. And to me, it seems like that is partly the root for some of your efforts now. How do you explain to somebody how isolating cancer is?
Well, I'm probably a prime example of the impact of isolation because sort of pre-cancer, I talked about in my business flying around the world, having business meetings and buying and selling goods, coming back to the UK, buying and selling goods there as well. So, I was a real people person and my phone never stopped buzzing with people that wanted to buy, sell, just socialize, and so when I got the news about cancer, I was frightened, but I knew that my personality was strong. And I thought to myself, actually, I'm going in here. There's a lot of vulnerable people, but my personality is going to help me here. But as soon as I went in for my first chemo, my God, I felt terrible. I felt I was in a room with so many vulnerable people having chemotherapy and crying and no talking, no laughter. And although I have incredible friends, incredible social circle, I felt, at the end of the day, it came down to only me. I was the one, everyone else picking me up, taking me there, holding my hand, being there when I felt low. But at the end of the day, it was only me that was going through this. And it was trauma. It was trauma. The whole process, I'd never been to hospital other than to visit. So, the fact of being a patient was for me just incredible. I'd like to term a driving person, and so to be a passenger in my own life, which it felt that I was, because I needed everybody's help around me. My wife, my family, the nurses, the doctors. I needed all them to help me just to get through that time. And that was very alien to me. And of course, I did feel isolated. I felt I was the only one that was like this. But of course, I'm not, because there are plenty out there that are going through this. But of course, they're doing it differently, Pat, because as we well know, life experiences, we can all experience the same thing, but we all react to it differently. And that's very much the same with cancer. I was in a ward with people on stage 4 like I was, but they all had different issues. Some didn't have friends and family like I did. Some were all on their own. So everyone had a different thing, and they all had different outcomes from it, So there we were, similar in many respects, but different in so many.
No, that's so true. We all react so differently, but I think that move from independence to dependence is
Mm.
really, really hard. It's hard on your psyche, it's hard on your ego, it's hard on everything. And then the key is, which you have done so brilliantly, frankly, is to move from that dependence back into independence to the degree you can. I mean, you may have some limitations and things, and I know you do, but you've made that transition back to being a doer, somebody who's giving back, somebody who is very independent, both in thought and as much as you can be physically. What do you think accounts for the ability to move back into independence? And the reason I ask is so many people, I think, get stuck. They get stuck in that dependency mode. And psychologically, spiritually, they just can't get out of it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. I see it myself all the time. Sometimes cancer can be a cross that people carry around for the rest of their life. And look, my cancer's incurable, so I'll never be far from the hospital or far from the cancer environment. I have to go to hospital every few months to have bloods done and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure many of your audience will be the same. So I try to sort of forget about it, but I think for me, it was the word acceptance. and I'm not a sorry for myself guy. I'm not a why me and all that business, because at the end of the day, life is a lottery. It's a health lottery. You step out of your house, you can get mown down by a car. So these days someone can shoot you, or anything is possible. So life is a lottery, and personally, I had the cancer than my family and friends, and it took on. I'm mentally and physically strong, but it took me about 5 years, I suppose, of mental jousting with cancer before I got to the place where I could accept what had happened to me, that I had those limitations. Your mind and your body, we know these days, are so linked. We didn't do that sort of thing so many years ago, So I was still an ambitious man in my head, and I couldn't understand why my head was trying to tell me to leave all that thing alone. Just put your feet up and accept that you've been given a bit of extra life. And when I analysed it, I thought, actually, an extra bit of life is a privilege that many people don't get. Sometimes people with heart attacks or other things, they accidents, their life's finished first off. There's no warning sign. So I was given a warning sign, and it was then that I thought, and I'm not a religious man, by the way, Pat, but I just thought that I've been given this time for some reason, and I'm going to use this constructively, because if I don't, when my time does come, I'm going to regret that I didn't do something positive with that time. And it was challenging because, those 5 or 6 years, I mean, it still applies today, by the way, but my health, it would go better, then it would go worse, and then another year or two it would get better, and then it would go worse, and I felt I could never get off that roundabout. I couldn't see any time without problems of health. But luckily, those have been now relatively minor in the scheme of what's happened to me in the early days of it. And I've been able to do my work. I focus on my work. You know yourself, Pat, helping people is the best drug in the world. I have to say that, it's better than all the stuff I have to take. And every day I'm able to do that in some way or another, even if it's just making somebody smile, and that works for me. And I get such a variety of work to do. Every day is a different day. Today I'm talking to you, tomorrow I'm talking to somebody else, doing different projects altogether, social media, cancer research. There's so many things going on that I can't wait to get out of bed in the morning, just to see maybe what's on my social media, what's in the email box, what do people want today, and I'm privileged that I've had 14 years of this experience, and I would be very sad if I went from this planet without sharing it. You know what I mean? Because every experience is learning for somebody.
That brings up a question I often ask, and that is, would you rewrite your story?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'd probably be dead by heart attack by now if I was still working. No, not at all, Pat. Look, to be honest with you, cancer has shown me a life that, I think we were having this conversation the other day, it's shown me opportunities that I could never have ever imagined when I was just working. It's a strange old world, because when you're just an ordinary Joe, you're just getting on with your life and you're just building things for your family. There's millions and millions and billions in the world of average people. No one takes any notice. But when you've had some horrible things happen to you, people take notice all of a sudden, and you become interesting to them. So I've got some stories like you have of incredible events that have happened because of my cancer. It's not because these people have fallen in love with me as a person. It's just that they find the story very interesting.
Well, I might argue, I think they could fall in love with you as a person. But I think the thing that you bring up that is really important, particularly for people who get stuck, is finding a sense of purpose, particularly as you're going through difficult times. Purpose can just drive you through so much.
Yeah, I did wonder in the early times, Pat, I did wonder what I was going to do. My wife had retired. She'd got her routine. I felt in a way at home. I wanted to get out. I couldn't go out. I wanted to do things I couldn't do. And I suppose the one saving grace is that the internet was here in my time of illness. It had just come really big. It had been bouncing about for a bit, but everybody started to use the internet when I was sick. So it gave me a platform without moving from home, where I could, write my blogs and do things like that. I discussed with friends how I knew that I wanted to share my experience because I knew that I wasn't the only one, but how to do it in the best way. It was quite difficult when your health is unreliable. So they suggested the internet. I didn't know anything about internet or Twitter or any of that thing. I didn't even know how it worked. So they set me up with a little blog, and then it just sort of rolled from there, really. We won some awards, and each little step forward, makes you keener to go more forward, if you like. And because I didn't know really what effect I was having on the community until I won this award. And then I thought, actually people are listening and people are, they do like it. This is a nice thing. So, my website goes from strength to strength. It's probably one of the most popular blogs, cancer blogs, probably in the world, actually. We're read all over the place by other patients, by clinicians, by scientists, by chief executives. So, we've got quite a broad audience, really.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life. You can subscribe to our free podcast at www.bumpintheroad.us or become a premium member to hear the full conversation. Just go to www.bumpintheroad.us for more information and to sign up.